Jam-packed episode tonight for Overreaction Monday. Dabo Swinney and the transfer portal. I feel like we've had this conversation before. Dabo, really? High schoolers are technically transfers? Also, EA reveal came out on Friday. Super excited to talk about that. My boy D-Now's on the show. Overreaction Monday. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Today I am the governor of college football. Yes, sir. The mayor of college football, aka Downtown Nino Brown. Yes, sir. Welcome to another marvelous episode of College Football. I'm sorry for Overreaction Monday. Just finished college football show. Now I am the governor of college football. And with me is a guy that pulls a lot of strings behind the scenes, my guy D-Now. Happy Monday, D-Now. Let's get right into it. EA Sports College Football 25 released their official reveal on Friday. And I wanted to talk to you about your thoughts on the reveal and the tier of teams you'll be utilizing. Every year there's a few teams that I utilize. Really excited about a few of them. Also on the reveal, did you notice the Iowa players waving to the hospital? I know stuff like that. I was excited about it. I was ecstatic. I know you was excited about it. So talk to me how you feel about the reveal and also about just the little nuances that they added in the reveal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited. Been a decade in the waiting. I know I talked to you about how soon are we starting an online dynasty together and all that. So, but yeah, I did notice the Hawks wave there. That was super cool. I think it's one of the best traditions in college football. But then I still have 14, so I fired it up and I looked at some of the schools that they showed in the trailer, and not a lot of like the same pregame things were there. I know we saw Boston College touching the eagle and all that stuff there, so that was pretty exciting. And I mean, just how far video games have come in that decade. It looked way better than any sort of Madden reskin that people were worried about. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, I think with the campus IQ, some of the stuff that they added, looks like it's going to be a fast-paced gameplay. We seen Appalachian State running a kick to the crib, so it looks like it's going to be like one of those things. You make a mistake defensively, you make a mistake on a return, you're going to pay for it. So what teams are you utilizing? I know you're going to be using Iowa. There's always about 4 teams I use. What 2 teams are you'll be using this year?
Yeah, so I feel like I got to use Iowa just to see how they are. But then my go-to, I always use Navy as my second team. Prior military guy, I love the service academies and triple option. I mean, I love running that stuff. I may dabble in some of the lower programs. Try to do the true rebuild 1-star to 5-star program. So maybe some Jacksonville State or some Sam Houston. So
that'll be fun for sure. Ole Miss will be my top tier team. So whenever I'm playing online, it's definitely going to be Ole Miss. I'm going to cause a lot of havoc. Syracuse will probably be that next tier of team I'll be using. And if they have Enter the Sandman in this game, Virginia Tech will certainly be one of those teams that I'll be using as well. So truly excited for this game. Happy with the reveal. I can't wait to see more information about, how exactly does Dynasty work. I hear it might not be cross platform, so I'm hoping that it is, but if it isn't, I'm getting an Xbox Series S, and because there's just people I play with on both sides, so I'm hoping that they figure that out. Let's get into our next story. Shall we? Dabo Swinney has some very peculiar remarks being the only non-military program to not have any transfers during the 2024 cycle, stating that it wasn't intentional. They looked at a few guys. Also, every player is technically a transfer. We just signed a whole lot of guys transferring from high school. Update. There was also a piece done on ESPN, I believe On3 posted it, about them saying that 3 to 5 year window, Dabo Swinney might not be the guy in Clemson. So D-Now, as you do so well, please break this down and try to figure this out for me. It wasn't making a lot of sense.
Yeah, so to start with the whole every player is a I think that's just an idiotic take. Like, yes, they're moving on from high school, but that doesn't make them a transfer. You go to the transfer portal because there's kids that are proven at the smaller schools or other bigger schools that can help your program. So that's just a stupid take. But yeah, Paul Feinbaum is the one that said he may not be there in 3 to 5 years. And I mean, we've been talking about that for a year already.
Right, for sure.
I think the window's closing fast. I wouldn't be surprised if it's closer to 3 than 5, especially if they miss the playoffs again this year. It'll be the 4th year in a row, I believe, that they haven't made the playoffs. And I saw another piece where Clemson is just getting guys who are late draft picks, camp invites anymore, where they used to be getting the first round talents. So I don't think Dabo is as strong of a recruiter as he once was. I think the ACC is caught up to him. So, I think it's closer to 3 than 5.
When we analyze the current landscape of college football and we look at this current era, it's like, me and Jalen kind of broke it down. It needs to be like 75-25 or probably closer to an 80-20 of the high school recruits versus the transfer portal players. The players you go get on a portal, you know exactly what you're getting from them. They're going to tell you exactly what they want, and they want to be in schemes that are comfortable. So you look at who the offensive coordinator is in Garrett Riley, it's like that sells itself. You got a quarterback that a lot of people will love to play for. But in the old way, you're able to only recruit high school because of the red shirt, automatic red shirt. When you transfer, the transfer wasn't the thing that it is today. So just looking at the landscape of college football, he has to change his ways if he plans on playing. And even if we look at the 12-team college football playoff, right, we look at the 5+7 model, right? The 4 automatics, the 1 G5 school, no matter where they're at. You look at the 7 other teams, those 7 other teams are probably going to all come from the Big Ten and the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them, you may get one other Big 12 school in there, but I think there's room for 2 ACC schools with the automatic bid and the at-large bid. I just don't think there's enough for that. So Dabo Swinney, get it together, use transfer for portal. They're going to get rid of you.
I've also seen he's on record saying that a lot of the people aren't good enough to come to Clemson that are in the transfer portal, which blows my mind because what's the weak part of Clemson's team? It's like wide receivers.
It's wide receivers, and it has been wide receivers, right?
And this year alone, you had Isaiah Bond, Evan Stewart. I mean, you could have even had Judkins running back with Shipley leaving. Like, you can't tell me those guys aren't good enough to play for Clemson. They would fill any sort of need you need and put you back on the map. So I see his time at Clemson coming to it, which is sad because I think he's one of the best coaches in the country.
For sure.
And if he leaves Clemson, I don't want to say it's like a Mark Richt scenario, but that's the kind of path that I see him. Like, next thing you know, he'll be on some ACC network calling games, which will be sad.
Right. It really would be, because you look at, when you think about dynasties in college football, you think about that run that they had, just like he had to remind the caller last year who called in and talked badly about him. He had to humbly remind him, like, hey, I really am Dabo Swinney. I've done a lot of positives, but you have to use the transfer portal. Even last year, you look at a guy like Keon Coleman, he could have got somebody like a Malik Washington, he could have got out of the portal with so many players that were out there that he could have went after. He didn't do it, and it's just extremely frustrating. Continuing with our conference win total over-under discussion. Up next is the Big Ten. So we're going to discuss some Big Ten over-unders. Starting with Illinois, over-under 5.5 games. How you feeling?
I'm going to go over. I think I'm a huge Brett Bielema fan, and I think he's building something there. We've seen it Wisconsin. We've seen Arkansas. So I'm going to go over. I think they reach 7.
Wow. I like that. Indiana, over-under 5.5 games.
This one's hard because I love the coach that they brought in from James Madison. It's Indiana, and it's his first year there. So I may push on this one.
You think it's a push? I also like that they got Curtis Rourke as their guy at quarterback from Ohio Bobcats. I think he'll be a great fit there. Looking at their schedule, from what I remember, they had kind of a friendlier schedule. Can they be bowl eligible in year one in such a tough conference? Be a difficult discussion, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that they are over on that. Iowa Hawkeyes, over under 7.5. How you feeling about that?
I'm gonna go over, and this isn't the homer in me. This is last year they had no offense and still won 10 games. I think
that's a great point.
Their defense alone wins them at least 8 games. So I'm going to go over.
Over, I would have to agree with you. I think they will just find a way to win games, and you're going to sit there and be surprised at some of the teams that they end up beating this year, and it's only because Iowa knows how to win ugly. If they have anything of an offense this year, you better look out. Maryland over under 6.5 games.
Man, this is another tough one. Yeah, I love that they brought in Morris at quarterback. I like Loxley as a coach, but outside of that, I don't see a lot. I'm going to go under, but just under. I think they can win 6 and get one of the earlier bowl games. So under.
I'm with you. They'll win 6. So they'll be just under, but they'll be bowl eligible. Michigan over under 9.5. I'm interested to see what you say here.
See, this is another tough one for me. It's solely because I don't know who's the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So I may push on this one as well. And if it's Davis, if they go young, I'm going to say under. But if they go like Tuttle, I believe is still there. Someone who's been in the scheme for a couple years, I may say over and go 10. So I'm right on that fence, and it just boils down to who is QB1.
I feel you. So you're on the cusp. I'm gonna go with the over. I think those games that Sharon Moore was able to coach last year, get some of that experience without, Harbaugh being there. Of course, I'm sure he was pivotal in coming up with the game plan. And hey, if you're in this situation, so the situational football is something that Sharon Moore will have to learn. But there were some tough calls he made in the Penn State game and in Ohio State game, going forward on 4th down, being more run heavy than they typically like to be, because they like to be at that 50-50 mark. So I believe that they somehow figure it out and they'll get to 10 wins. I'm not sure they'll get over 10 wins, but I think they'll get to 10 wins. Jonathan Smith, Aiden Childs, and Michigan State Spartans over under 4.5.
I'm gonna go under. It's gonna be right at 3 or 4. I just think there'll be some growing pains moving into the Big Ten. And Childs, it's not Pac-12 football, so under.
Like it. This was a tough one for me as well. I'm gonna go out on the limb and say they get 5. Minnesota over under 5.5. I'm going under here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go under. I'm not sold on PJ Fleck's offense there. I think he doesn't have the tools around there to win very many games, so I'm gonna go under.
Could this be his last year there?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I like it. Great take. Nebraska over under. Matt Rule year 2. We know what he does in these year 2 and year 3. Over under for the Nebraska Cornhuskers 7.5.
I'm gonna go over. I think they win 9 years. I'm jumping on the Rule train as much as it hurts as a Hawkeye fan. But like you said, year 2, year 3, he starts getting his guys, and you see his programs take that huge jump win-wise.
Northwestern, another difficult one. Over under 5.5. I'm taking the under.
But yeah, I think they're going to be one of the bottom dwellers in the Big Ten. So I'm going to have to go under as well.
Ohio State. I mean, they paid for the players that they wanted in the transfer portal. So they're over under 10.5 games. How you feeling about that?
I'm going to go over. I think they only lose 1 game. I am going to go out. I'll take that back. They lose 2 games.
I know you got one of them is Oregon. Who's the other one?
Michigan again.
Wow.
And I think it cost Day his job. That's one of my hot takes this year too.
Wow. That would be incredible. Oregon over under, same thing, 10.5 games. What do you think?
I'm going to go over again. I think they have a strong chance of running the table this year.
When you look at the resources, when you look at the head coach Dan Lanning, when you look at getting somebody like Dylan Gabriel, a guy that I've been big on since the UCF days. I remember some of the conversations I had with Boomer and Nino last year when Jackson Arnold came to town and Dylan Gabriel was able to hold it down, made a lot of big plays. If he can bring some of the flashes of what he did in that Texas game last year when he was able to get that victory together for Oklahoma, things will be really interesting in Eugene with the playmakers that he has on the outside. Oregon will be scary, and I love their program. And Dan Lanning is just one of those ball coaches. You think about a few coaches, a handful of coaches in college football, like, hey, that's the guy I want to go pay for. It's definitely Dan Lanning for me. Penn State over under 9.5. I'm taking the under.
See, I'm the opposite. I think they go
You taking
over.
over? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for Big Ten, I think it's going to come down to Penn State or Oregon winning the whole
I like
thing.
it.
So I'm going to go over. I think Aller finally figures out his hiccups from last year and shows why he's one of the top quarterbacks in the country.
That would be amazing. So if that were to happen, then James Franklin will stop playing not to lose in these pivotal games. So I would love that for Penn State. The faithful there deserve a really good team. So that would be good for them. Purdue, Hudson Card, and the Purdue Boilermakers. How you feeling about them over under 4.5?
I'm going to say over, but it's like 5. So just barely over. I love Card, but it's like Minnesota. They don't have the weapons to win the games.
I agree. I got to see Hudson Card last year at the Virginia Tech game. I got to see him from the field, and he was running before the rain delay. He was running the offense like a well-oiled machine. It ended up being a better game than advertised, but at the beginning of that game, Purdue was actually dominating. So, and a Virginia Tech team that I'm very high on this year. So, but I have to agree with you. I don't think they'll make bowl eligibility. Not a team that I'm really paying a lot of attention to. Losing Coach Brom last year, I think, was pivotal. So we'll have to see, but I'll take the under with them as well. Greg Schiano or Rutgers, how you feeling about them? Over under 6.5?
I'm gonna go over. I think they get to 7 wins. I'm a huge fan
last year.
Yeah, Schiano, he knows how to pull those wins out of his hat, and I love the Minnesota quarterback that transferred over there. So I think he gets 7 wins.
7 wins. Beautiful. UCLA over under 5.5. I'm taking the under, and I'm willing to bet serious money on the under.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on the under. As much as I love their new hire at head coach,
I like Deshaun Foster a lot.
Yeah, it comes down. They are kind of the Maryland-ish now of the Big Ten. It's going to take them a couple years to get over that.
We think about, we're in an election year. You think about the lame duck period. What Chip Kelly did to that program during the lame duck period, he didn't attempt to recruit at all. If you look at what the recruiting rankings were in his tenure there, and you look at this past year, he knew he was leaving. He was hoping for an NFL job, didn't find an NFL job. He wanted something where he don't have to. It's difficult coaching in college football. You have to have that dog eat dog mindset, and you got to be ready to put the work in. And where Chip Kelly is in his career, he's not ready to put the work in. So what he did in the lame duck period, he did him no favors. I mean, to some of the coaching staff changes, just not actively recruiting, losing a player with the talents of a Dante Moore. It's serious business. USC, I feel like this is a really difficult one. Over under 7.5. Will they be able to make that adjustment from playing sexy football out in the Pac-12 to being able to bring your lunch pail and win difficult games in the Big Ten?
I am going to go under. I think they win 7 games, and it's solely because their defense is atrocious. And I don't think with the Oregons, Ohio States, even Michigan, I don't think their defense holds up.
This is a difficult one for me, but I'm going to keep it consistent. I'm going to say Lincoln Riley finds a way to win some ugly games this year, and he finds a way to get 8. It ain't more than 8. I'm not confident in saying the over, but I'm going to say the over. Jay Fish and the Washington Huskies over under 7.5. I am taking the under. I'm interested to hear what you say.
You said you are taking the under?
Yeah, I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with you on the under. Again, he had the perfect offense for the Big 12. And it's solely because the Big 12 was kind of lacking defensively.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think his offense, he may score points, but I don't think he scores enough points to consistently win in the Big 10 this year.
I will have
He'll need a couple recruiting cycles, I think, before Washington gets back.
I would have to agree with you wholeheartedly. Wisconsin Badgers, Luke Fickell, year 2. It was kind of weird watching Wisconsin football last year, seeing as much spread as they ran, especially with the Bell caliber running back that they had in Braylon Allen. It was a weird year for me, but I'm a believer in the culture that Luke Fickell brings. You could definitely see that he was missing from Cincinnati last year for sure, just in one short season. How you feeling about Wisconsin over under 6.5? Where do you rank them?
See, this one is a tough one for me because, like you said, it was weird seeing him run spread when ever since I can remember. It's been run it down your throat, Ron Dane to now. But seeing Tyler Van Dyke isn't QB1 as of right now, is a little concerning.
That is very concerning.
They lost DK in the transfer portal, their number one receiver. I'm gonna have to go under. I think they really struggle. As much as I like Fickle, I think he's one of the upcoming coaches. I think they go under, which is tough to say for a Wisconsin team to 6 wins. But yeah, I think under.
So if it is under, you're talking about another year of mediocrity. How long does the Wisconsin Brass give Fickle? I'm not saying he will be fired this year, but if you got 2 back-to-back years of mediocrity, and let's say next year is somewhat of the same, when is enough and they go get a guy? Because Wisconsin football has been pretty good for a plethora of years.
So if over the 3 years Fickle is 6-7 wins, I think that's it. I don't think he makes year 4.
So Billy Napier and Jalen and I was having a discussion. I was like, yo, we've been talking a lot about Billy Napier, but he reminds me of Scarface. You know what I'm saying? And it reminds me of Tony Montana and Scarface, played by Al Pacino. Really looking at the joint that said the world is yours. Like, that's the vibes I'm getting from Napier, man. Hell of a recruiting cycle. He had a top 5 transfer portal class, top 13 recruiting class, recruited his butt off in last year's cycle as well. You want to talk about some of the gets that they got in this portal season?
Yeah. So I think, so as much as we give him crap and potentially on the hot seat, first coach on the hot seat, like you said, the way he can recruit is unparalleled to anybody else in the country. And the reason why I personally think he gets fired, but the reason why I could see him not getting fired is because he's brought in top recruits either as freshmen or the portal in the key positions. Like, yes, he has Mertz coming back, but if things start going sour, he brought in one of the best quarterbacks in the country in DJ Lagway. Yes, he lost ETN, but then he recovered by getting Katie Daniels, who I think could play early. But then in the portal, he's got guys with experience. So he's got the guys that can help him win now, with guys like Badger, DK, who we talked about from Wisconsin.
For sure.
To really pick up the offense and the receiver aspect. But then he brought in McLean from Colorado. He's brought in linemen. He even brought in another quarterback that may be kind of that bridge if Mertz does before he throws in Lagway. So I think that's what's going to save him if he sticks around. He's brought in guys to help win now, but also filled the holes of guys long term.
I think that's the key to winning, and not only at the college level, at the professional level, to be able to win now and win later. But you look at that. We talk about the schedule. We talked about it, quite often. This may be the worst schedule I've ever seen.
That back half is brutal.
It is. Like, when you just really analyze it, and like you said, the back half of games. I know South Carolina, Arkansas have had recent, terrible schedules in recent memory, but if you look at the history of Florida football, they don't, other than like the early 70s and a part of the 80s, they have a rich tradition of winning, and they've probably fired some coaches prematurely. So you think about, what Billy Napier has done, and it's like, yo, this is a make it or break it year. And then you look at the schedule and you start to think to yourself, well, hey, he's recruiting well. We have the talent on our team. You put those players in a different jersey. You put them in a Georgia jersey. You're talking about this is one of the best constructed rosters in the sport.
Absolutely.
But because they're in Gainesville, because we haven't seen Billy Napier be able to do it, because we got the old ball coach Steve Spurrier, who's still close to the program, said that he wished that Billy Napier would tidy things up. I didn't know if that was from an organizational standpoint, or should he tidy things up because he turns a blind eye to things he shouldn't turn a blind eye to. So when you have this tough stretch of games, Graham Mertz, by and large, played pretty daggone good last year. 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, didn't turn the ball over a lot, was actually more athletic than a lot of us thought, because we didn't really see him do that in Madison at Wisconsin, but it'll be interesting. So does he keep his job? I don't think any of us think he will keep his job. But outside looking in, if he loses his job, will he be one of those coaches that get picked up immediately?
So I think in order for him to keep his job, which I don't think happens, he's got to go 500 the back half of the schedule.
Yeah.
I know our guy Nino he said that Lagway will help him keep his job if he throws him in there, which may be the case. But if he does end up getting fired, I mean, there's a whole bunch of G5 schools I think would scoop him up. We saw what he did in Louisiana.
Phenomenal job there.
So he'll be one of the top G5 schools options. But I also think, like, yes, his recruiting is phenomenal, like we've been talking about. I think it also boils down to the swamp isn't the swamp anymore.
Nope.
Which that was, I want to say 70% of Florida's success. Teams feared going into the swamp because you couldn't hear.
The humidity is out of this world.
Exactly. Like, as much as it boils down to maybe terrible coaching, not tightening up things, I would put that at the top, one of the top things on his list. He needs to figure out how to get that fan base back to what it used to be. And he could honestly win 2 or 3 games just solely off if the swamp returns to being as juiced as it once was.
That is a phenomenal take. I couldn't agree with you more. There are certain stadiums, when you think about, the history of the sport, you think about how difficult it was at one point to go down there and win. And now, we're seeing teams being able to achieve that. So I think that week 1 or week 0 matchup with Miami is going to be very telling, not only for this Florida program, it's going to also be telling for the Hurricane program. Both coaches, Mario Cristobal and Billy Napier, have done a phenomenal job with recruiting. They got the players on their roster. They both have done a great job, via the transfer portal. That'll be kind of, I think, a measuring stick to be like, hey, if Florida can find a way to win that game and they're impressive in winning that game, like, whoa, maybe they're better. But if they go out there and it's 88 out the gate and they get exposed, it's going to be like, okay, it's officially the Billy Napier getting fired watch list.
So that game, if Florida can win, I think the storyline flips. So I think Napier will get a little bit longer and Cristobal will get a little bit shorter.
Right. And it's sad because both coaches have done a great job recruiting. Yep. Yo, this has been a fun episode. I can't believe we done breezed through the episode as easily as we have. Dino, let them know where they can find you at, the social media they can find you at, and also the shows that they find you on.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter, X, at DNowCF_CFB. I'm all over College Football Nation. Hopefully starting up Hawks Nest soon, covering Iowa football. I know me and Nino, we do Debbie Darlings every Tuesday, Thursday. And hopefully starting a Texas State show covering football for them, me and Nino, which I'm super stoked about. I love what Kenny's doing down there. So, yep.
That is a fun program. D-Now, like I said, like I always say, he pulls a lot of strings for us. I don't know if you guys been paying attention to his top 25 takes. He has some very spicy takes. I think Late Kick Josh would be appreciative of some of the takes that you have, and I think he will give them a high ranking. So make sure you guys check all of our content out. We're blowing up. We're doing pretty well for ourselves. As I always like to say, there are no moral victories in a sport that survive and advance. That's why college football has the greatest regular season. And until next time, you already know what it is. One's up, D-Now. We'll see you on the show in 2 weeks. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention, D-Now's on the show every other week now. So it's going to be fun, having, Nino on one episode and D-Now on the other episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure y'all check them out on everything you just mentioned. Take care, y'all.